Hello and welcome to Strive Dialogues. We are today honored to have with us Major General Sudhakar ji. A very warm welcome to you, Sudhakar, on this show for the second
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so
Uh,
much, sir.
I know you are very busy. You have engagement immediately after this, and tomorrow you are going to be speaking on something very important as far as our geopolitics goes. I wish you all the very best to you. Well, to my audience, I would like to tell that Janal Sudhakar is actually going to be speaking tomorrow in Calcutta as part of the CUTS think tank and US Consulate's joint seminar, which is going to be on geopolitics. Let me just show you all. It's basically Yeah, it's basically this defense news conclave, stories of US India defense and security partnerships, dialogues on deliverables to deliveries. And you can see the lineup of speakers who are there. So, my compliments to you, Sudhakar, and wish you all the best for the show and hope it goes off well. And to our audience, we have got the right man as far as discussing today's topic is concerned, which all of you know is Bharat dazzles and China rattled. Why am I saying so? Why am I saying this thing that Bharat dazzles and China rattled? Basically, China has been stressing after the G20 summits, phenomenal success, that it's an economic forum, not a geopolitical forum. Where was the need to say this kind of a statement for China? Reading between the lines, you will realize that the statement conveys its frustration over the stupendous success of G20 summit under the leadership of Bharat, led by, of course, the Prime Minister. And I would straight away, give full marks to S Jaishankar, who has been excellent as far as our international diplomacy is concerned. Similarly, if you take his statement on the spice route, or what we call it as the India West Asia uh, Europe corridor, even there, China's statement are very, very, I would say, negative. What their papers are saying. At the same time, we advocate that the various connectivity initiatives should be open, inclusive, and form synergy and should not become geopolitical tools. Now, tell me, is the spice route really having all these negativities or geopolitical overtone? I don't think so. Look at the BRI. It traps countries in debt. It gives loans at a phenomenal rate. It actually takes the Chinese laborers to that country and almost settles them there. So the local population does not get benefit from the BRI. Whereas if you look at the spice route and what the Prime Minister had said, it was very clear that it is an inclusive people to people kind of an approach where the countries which are going to benefit will not in any way be threatened by the major powers who are going to be part of this particular initiative. Uh, India has also, if you look at the BRICS, also there also India in some form or the other has outplayed China. I am using the word outplayed essentially to say that the Indian I think approach to BRICS was by and large accepted by the member countries, and even the new countries which came into the fold of BRICS are more or less inclined towards India. Then you also had if you look at the Indian economy, Indian economy as of now is growing at a very stable 7.5% to 7% around that range, whereas the Chinese economy is going down. And we will ask General Sudhakar as to what is happening to the Chinese economy. Subsequently, Taiwan and Philippines have also started showing teeth to China, and China got so rattled that it is now conducting the second exercise in the Taiwan Strait. In fact, third one. Just a day yesterday, I think they have started this exercise in around Taiwan Sea. So, what does that indicate? That I think indicates some kind of a frustration with the Chinese. Are actually maybe the Xi Jinping is feeling. The Russia-Ukraine war is also not going as desired. Probably China was expecting a very, very positive result in favor of Russia, which would have actually prompted them to take a decisive action against Taiwan to assimilate it. Initially, it will do try to do it through peaceful means, but it has said on record that we can use all possible means to assimilate Taiwan in our. So, Jan Sudhakar, I think with that we will kickstart our discussion. And I'm going to ask you the first question. Is my inference right? Is China really rattled? If you have a counter view, please do go ahead and share it with us. Or whatever are your views. Floor is all yours, Sudhakar.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for getting me for the second time to this very esteemed platform and led by senior veterans of your stature, General Chaturvedi, and the team members.
No, you're
Well,
also a member of this tribe. You're
yes,
also
I
a member
am.
of this.
So I can't go very far away from my guru, and you have been my eternal instructor and guru, sir. And it makes me feel very proud. I hope I am able to meet your expectations, sir. Honestly speaking, to share with the audience, I have been virtually out of contact with the geopolitics. That's my passion, although for past 4 months. But at the behest of the call coming from my instructor, General Dushwant Singh, I dare not have courage to actually say no to him. So here am I. Whatever penny's worth I am, sir, I'll try to share it with the audience. And
Sure,
if
go
there are
ahead.
any deficiencies, do forgive me.
No,
I'll make amends, and my cup of learning is always empty, as we have learned from you from the
thank
CDM days, sir. With that, if I may come to the first question, sir, for the sake of the audience, may I request you, sir, to repeat the question again, sir, please?
Yeah, basically, given the kind of background which I gave of the way China is feeling the pressure of India somewhere stealing the limelight as far as international geopolitics is concerned, especially due to the last few events like BRICS, G20, etc., as also the relative problem, internal problem which China is facing. Do you think China is really rattled?
Sir, keeping in view the time stipulation, answering this question would amount to writing a huge book, sir. So I'll restrict my response to very quick reflections
Yeah.
that the subject per se, underscored in the question, is huge and voluminous. It encompasses issues related to geopolitics. It has domains related to geoeconomics. It has domain which India, as a leading country in the world today, has gave a very, I would, credible opening to a new domain called as the human-centric development. By saying human-centric development, to my understanding of the limited grasp of geopolitics, I would say here is a new opening of a new world order. So, besides these three issues which I have highlighted, there are issues, these are the external component. As a response to the question which you have asked, there are internal issues which are more rattling and damaging to China as a nation state, as an ambitious global power
Okay.
by 2049. So let me tackle the issue which is very contemporary and very, very close to us as per the timeline and chronology of events, the G20. The G20 certainly has not only rattled up China externally, but also shaken up China and come as a stark reminder that its dream of rejuvenating the Middle Kingdom by 2049 may be a very far-fetched dream that it can attain. And why am I saying is there are two issues which, as per my understanding, which are in the minds of the Chinese leadership. The first and foremost issue which has been thrown up by G20 is the global south. The global
Mm-hmm.
south, which has taken the brunt of all the anguish and the pains in the global order today, be it the rise in fuel price or the food price or the fertilizer price, it has borne the brunt of the complete ongoing global crisis today, or talk about the debt crisis, talk about the financial crisis, which not now I'm talking of, it started way back in 1997, the Asian crisis, the roots have been pointing at Thailand, thereafter in the Lehman Brothers 2008-9, and thereafter the 2022, the crisis is actually ongoing, the climate change, the host of other issues. It is the global south suffering which has not been able to be addressed by none other than the second largest economy in the world. The second largest economy, when I say, I mean China itself. China, although has been seeking and aspiring to play the role of a global leader, now or by 2049, has not been able to find quick solutions to any of these problems. However, having failed, I think India, it came on the lap of India naturally without doing too much of calibration or stage management. And India has lapped it up in a very intelligent and in a dexterous manner. And it has paid dividends. It may be, to some geopolitical analysts, may appear to be uh, very immediate in nature. I see a very, very long term perspective to each of the issues. And first and foremost thing is the African Union having been integrated into the G20 as the 21st member is something which Xi Jinping also would have dreamt of or would have aspired to do either in BRICS or in SCO organization. SCO would have been slightly out of contiguity, the continental lack of contiguity. Yes, definitely in the BRICS in near future. So India has actually proactively addressed the issue by taking the African Union into G20. Now, what are the issues? What is the second issue that I'm talking of? The second issue, it may be alarming to most of us to learn that almost about $2 to $3 trillion China has actually given on debt or the loans to many countries, whether it is Latin America or European Union or the Africa or the Asia. Asia is actually on the top. It's about $400 billion, more than 15% of the region's loan given to many countries, one third of which actually are owed by Pakistan, Laos, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, and Mongolia. Africa takes the next, is around $70 billion, 12% of the region's total amount of loan given by China. And the countries which are actually owing loan, the major share is about 12%: Angola, Ethiopia, Congo, Zambia, and we have Sudan. We all know about how the debt crisis has got into a kind of a controversy in Angola, because this loan had been given in exchange of oil, anticipated oil supply from Angola, which I'm sure, sir, you are so aware of all this, you would bear me out. Third one is the South America. It's almost about 140 billion or more. 95% of the loan are being owed by Venezuela, Brazil, Ecuador, Argentina, and we have Bolivia. And European countries are $160 billion or more, 85% of which are loaned to Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Hungary. So, what am I coming to? I am coming to the issue which the G20 as an institution, global organization, as also the global apex bodies like the World Bank, the IMF, they have raked up the issue of the debt crisis in the global south, which the global south countries are unable to pay out of the peak period of BRI, 160 countries. Now it has come down to, I think, 147, if I recall correctly. The latest article written by um, uh, 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 one of the very eminent author, and in that it has been brought out that 49 countries have raised their hands. They are unable to pay the debt. Servicing is very, very difficult. And G20 has proposed, it was discussed in the previous G20 meeting, that a debt service separation initiative and formatted a common framework for debt treatment. Somehow this has not come into being. So it was a proposal, it was mooted in the previous meeting in the G20, which has gone out as a Delhi declaration. One was expecting some kind of a well formatted and crystallized course of action, which in order to address this debt crisis by the countries in the global south. Also, it has been highlighted by many sittings and deliberation that there was a requirement of transparent mechanism, also sustainable financial projects, responsible borrowing practices. Rate of interest are very high. Rate of interest for the loan which is given by China is between 2.5, it goes up to almost close to 5%. In one of the articles of General Doshand, I read it as close to 6%, which you had corrected and told me, no, it's not 6%. So I take it as close to 5%, which is very, very high. And even the moratoriums have been discussed. However, there is an urgent need and there is a crisis looming large in the global geopolitics today. If we do not find an early solution, this may become very, very critical for the global order to address. This is the biggest crisis, in addition to the 2 to 3 trillion of these debts which China has actually loaned to the countries. There is a huge amount of close to $27 trillion which internally it is indebted to the country. There is a huge debt to GDP ratio. It comes to approximately 282%, which is the highest in the world, or more than 282%. The global average being 246% as on today, if you take the top 10 countries, and US being at 247%. So therefore, there is a huge challenge. When you go into the details, since the time doesn't permit, I won't like to go into the details of the Evergrande or the real estate or uh, the country garden, which have collapsed. 30 to 32% of the GDP is actually dominated or owned by the real estate of China. So that apart, there are many other host of issues. There are internal administrative issues, some of which have come to the light. For example, the rocket force, the leadership was chosen by none other than Xi Jinping, and the leadership in the ministerial role, particularly the defense minister, who occupies special places, that 7-member council members at the top level in the CMC, and out of 7, the 5 important members, he occupies one of the members of the 5 leaders in the top hierarchy. He having gone missing after the last week of August, after the last meeting, it is something actually bringing in multiple questions in the mind, that is there something seriously wrong, or is it only the corruption which is being talked about? Talk about the foreign minister. Likewise, rocket force itself, to my understanding and research, which I had done about 4 months back, the biggest crisis before the rocket force was the circular error of probability. They could not fix the problem. That is why the rockets which are being developed in China are not able to hit the targets with precision. This was the biggest challenge to my reading and understanding. I may be wrong, but I thought I must share these issues in this forum. Apart from that, the situation which is developing world over, there is a anti-China sentiment which is building up from country to country and from time to time. This actually is indicative of one fact, as far as my analysis is concerned, that China may have succeeded to become an economic might with big questions all around, and also aspiring to become a global power by 2049. But the biggest failure, as far as my understanding goes, is its diplomacy. I think China has taken a strong battering and beating in diplomacy. It is unable to connect and understand the real issues on the ground. And while the global south, once upon a time, became a factor of concern for China, China has projected the points with regard to WTO, the climate change, and host of other issues which are badly affecting the global south. But of late, its survival in the international forums and also at the global apex organization to defend itself has driven it to go national interest centric. So therefore, it is actually trying to take all kinds of actions purely from the perspective of what is the immediate in nature, what is critical in nature. Critical in nature to China today, to my understanding, is its internal strife, internal instability. And then comes the ambitious objective that it has set for itself, is Taiwan. And thereafter, the global order. This is the order which I have understood. If it can address the China thing, then perhaps it would be addressing almost 75% or more than that. Therefore, to answer your question, sir, more to do with the rattling. I think I would go in for it. China is deeply rattled. It has to settle scores within itself rather than scoring brownie here and there. It needs to actually introspect, go into the details on the issues which are affecting its internal administration within the country. And also, our viewers should be mindful of the fact whenever there has been an internal crisis like this in China, it has always um, applied its resources onto the external domain, particularly the immediate neighbors, to subdue the neighbors, because it has used the historical legacy and the philosophy in order to ensure internal stability. Keep your neighbors subdued. Back to you, sir.
Okay, Sudhakar, I think you have painted a very, very wide canvas of the entire state of China, whether it is external or internal factors, their internal weaknesses, their external shortcomings. Uh, I want to pick up one out of this. To my mind, it looks to me that that is where China is going to lose out badly. And that is about the leadership of Global South. If you see, when it started off with the BRI, it almost captured the entire Global South with the kind of loans which it offered, which you have covered it in a fair amount of detail, right in Latin America, Africa, Asia, Pacific. So almost everywhere it tried to reach out through its Belt and Road Initiative, but it had some major flaws in that, because of which it is not only going to lose the faith and the trust of the global South, but it will also start losing the market of these places. It may not be very evident at this point in time, but in my view, what has happened is the way the global south leadership has been very deftly taken out from the Chinese clutches to to the larger committee of nations represented by rest of the world by some fine diplomacy by India. India may be the preferred leader of the South, and this time round, I think G20, India played that card very well. In my opinion, what do you think China will do, or in my next question is, what do you think China will do to seek back this space? Because it has lost the dollars which it has given to these countries. It is unlikely to get paid. You yourself said 49 countries have refused to or express their inability to give. You see, no loan is worth its amount if you do not get the interests. So if they are raising their hands not to pay, then it is a sunk money, as they call it in economy. So what is the Chinese next move going to be, given the fact that they are internally also suffering a lot, both in all fronts, economic, whether it is internal security, economics, whether it is the poverty, their GDP is concerned, per capita, everywhere it will have an impact. How do you think it will reclaim the, especially in the light of the fact that African Union president, the way he praised India after his inclusion in G20 is something phenomenal. Do you think Z is going to visit Africa very shortly?
So, the excellent questions. I couldn't compliment you enough. And there are no quick answers. Again, very vast canvas. I'll restrict myself to two or three issues, sir. First and foremost thing, I think it will do good to China if Xi Jinping focuses on the internal issues. He has to put his country in order. You list out whether it is political, economic, social issues, but name any issue, list out there 20, 30 points. And when I was doing a little rambling in the evening, I found he's missing the game. Perhaps he's not able to put his finger on the right issue. Perhaps. Maybe his advisors have actually misguided him. So, first and foremost issue is that he is to put his house in order. This is my understanding. When I talk about house in order, sir, in fact, thanks to you, you have given us the habit of reading. I was reading the Japanese crisis way back in 90s. Japan went through a similar type of crisis in the 90s, if you recall. And what did Japan do? It had gone in for a housing boom, unoccupied houses, large infrastructure built up, unutilized, and the economy started going flat. So, what did Japan do? Japan, as a kind of a stroke of luck, I would say, it invested something to the tune of 6% of the GDP. 6% of the GDP, and it was very lucky. It bounced back. The rate of growth of Japan after this critical phase, what China is going through today, it bounced back from zero to, if I recall correctly, it was 2.3 or I think 3% rate of growth. But is it possible to apply the same analogy in respect of China? China, if it does that, it is already 282% debt to GDP ratio. So, isn't the 6% of GDP going to further compound the problem? The answer is yes. So it is in a vicious cycle. So what does he do? How does he control all this? I think there is a need for him to sit down with the leadership, have a little more democratic form of interactive sessions rather than suspecting everyone and writing off every leadership he's picking up. He needs to relax the environment. He has to get out of that phase of zero COVID policy. He has to get out of the phase of how he's treating the Tibetans. 1 million children have been separated from the parents of Tibetans. 1 million. This is the official figure. Unofficial figure is reaching 10 million. I doubt if 10 million children are there in Tibet. Similarly, in Xinjiang province, almost about close to 1 million there in camps. Unofficial figures say it going up to 10. So I think there is a need for the leadership to look at every aspect in a more I would say liberal manner, and weigh the pros and cons. Is communism the ultimate answer for improvement of livelihood of its own people, or is it going to go through or subject his own people like the way it happened during the Great Leap Forward or the Long March? Is he prepared to lose so many lives? Soon we may be hearing that people in China are passing off because of lack of nutrition and the basic requirement of livelihood, sir. So this is one part. Second part, I wanted to say that when in crisis, we generally tackle the low-hanging fruits. The low-hanging fruit, as far as I'm concerned, having taken a look, it is not the Latin America. Incidentally, Latin America is the country which is exporting close to 43% of its GDP to China. I mean, in form of raw material and products, it's going oil, gas, and a host of rare earth elements, etc. But I'm looking closer homes. The ASEAN nations, it comprises of 10 countries. You have Myanmar, you have Thailand, you have Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, you have Indonesia, you have Malaysia, you got Singapore, and East Timor. So 10 plus 1, East Timor is yet to be ratified, sir. So if you go into the details, because I watched your video the other day, sir, it's beautifully covered. Yes, it is saturated, but it is saturated with one thing, sir: the dependency on China. It is heavily saturated hydrocarbon oil, sir. The dependency is so deep rooted that even though you try your best, you cannot decouple them, sir. And in order of priority, if you see, you have Myanmar, you have Laos and Cambodia. Their basic day-to-day life is dependent entirely on China, sir. Next on priority would be coming country like Thailand. Thailand, we have missed the bus. The elections were held with great difficulty after 2014. One always thought that the democratic form of government would come back. Look at what has happened. It's going back to again the military junta, sir. So Thailand is falling. You have Indonesia and Malaysia. We know the state. There are only two countries who are sticking out the thumb in ASEAN countries. They are Philippines and Vietnam. The third, of course, you have indicated Taiwan. I take it that Taiwan, right from day one, it has been,
Even
been
even
showing
even
weakness.
even Indonesia is that
Indonesia,
way.
to some extent. Indonesian president, you see, sir, there is a double speak which is taking place. If I may take liberty of engaging with you,
Yeah,
you see, the latest meeting which took place recently, few days back only, East Asia Summit. In East Asia Summit, the president of Indonesia has gone to the extent that it's okay, your confrontation between China and America is fine, but do not treat the land of ASEAN nations as a land of uh, uh, confrontation and disaster. Please don't take us to the disaster. Do not make us as proxy like the way you have done in Ukraine. Do not use us like Afghanistan. Kindly leave us to decide what exactly. Incidentally, sir, ASEAN is based on two paradigm philosophies. One is non-interference, and second one is consensus. Every decision they take, every member has to agree, only then they can adopt it. So this
Yeah.
is a low hanging fruit. I feel personally that China will be able to, it has invested enough, and it will be very easy for China to make a deep penetration into this particular region. And the moment it goes, it is already a member, a leader of RCEP, that is regional cooperation
Yeah.
economic that thing,
Yeah.
sir. And there are about 14 or 15 countries, and they have got free trade agreement. Plus China has applied for membership. It is at the final stage of being approved. It is called something, some progressive partnership, trans Pacific. Some groups are wherein you have Mexico, you have Chile, you have Peru, then you have Thailand, and you have one more country. And also China has already applied for that. Canada is the leading member, sir. China's application is likely to be approved, wherein India is actually, I don't know why we are missing these kind of things. We don't have any membership in the groups except for the RCEP, which is under the aegis or the leadership of the US. We are neither member of RCEP, fine, agree, because we wanted to defend our producers, manufacturers from China's dumping in our market. We should not be losing out this particular membership of the progressive CPTPP. It is called a CPTPP. We should apply for it. It is going to give us an opening. So therefore, China is going to try out economically, sir, to continue investing money. And we may say about African Union has actually come in. Africa as a continent today, it is going to be the future landmass where the strategic rivalry will continue. Yes, cosmetically, or we may have got immediate pleasure and a sign of victory as far as India is concerned out of G20, but China has invested huge amount of money. You know it, sir. There are almost about 75 billion, which later I researched and found that the amount is touching 155 billion. Not only one or two countries. And China, Russia in conglomerate with hand in gloves, they have penetrated into almost all the countries in Africa. So
Okay,
after having,
Sudhakar.
sir,
Sudhakar, what I gather is that China still has deep pockets. China can amend its policy of, debt trap policy. China can reorientate its approach to the global south and win back or retain its leadership of the global south. I fully respect that. There was an article today in South China Monitor Morning Post also, which said that there is a need for a combined approach between US and India and the other like-minded countries to actually invest more in global South if they wish to take away the leadership of global South from China. That's the other counter view of it. Yes, you are also right, possibly that we are basking in the momentary pleasure of seeking the friendship of Africa, etc. But ultimately, everything will count based on how much of trade we do with these global South countries. But you should also see the intangibles of global South, because global South also matters when it comes to international issues, voting in the UN, voting for particular causes, voting for particular places. You will find that the Indian rep almost crosses the 180 mark, whether it is the International Court of Justice, whether it is for FATF, whether it is. And what I'm trying to say is that the soft power, benign diplomacy, which India has been practicing for the last few years, that is, I think, somewhere making a positive impact. We've got still a long way to go, but there will be now competition on the Global South platform to seek the leadership. The country which is able to do it in a benign, non threatening manner is what I feel will ultimately emerge as the winner. Economics will be an important factor, and we hope that the Indian economy increases in due course of time. 2027, they are saying it will become 5 trillion, it will be the third largest. After all, when it becomes the third largest, it definitely has a major impact in collaboration with the other countries, in collaboration with Saudi Arabia, in collaboration with UAE, in collaboration with. See, if you can't defeat an enemy or adversary directly, then you develop partnership. So we have to look at the other side. So I just painted the counter picture to what you have said, and we will move on to the next question, and that will be the last question before we take, because I know you have to go out somewhere. So we will take that as the last question. I had a number of other questions, but we will stick to only one question from here, and that is: RBC, will China emerge as the next superpower, or will India spoil the party of Xi Jinping? Given the way Xi Jinping is functioning in his country, I'm asking you
So,
the same question in a different manner, but let me see what is your response.
so my response to you is there is much more than the economics of a nation state to become a global power. You have already answered it partly to an extent, I would say. And the credibility of India today, it is on the cusp of launching itself to global status. And when I'm saying this, the biggest crisis today in the world order is polarization. The world is divided, the east versus west and north versus south. There is no country in the world which is enjoying credibility of that of India, parallel to India, sir. India is the only country, by virtue of its geostrategic importance, the geography, and its very traditional historical philosophy or civilizational philosophy of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, taking everyone along, sir. Everyone's problem is our problem, we'll find a solution. India has emerged as the biggest and the tangible solution provider. So, therefore, in the long run, I personally feel, and I'm more convinced about it. More I read about China, I'm convinced that China is not doing the right thing, it is not going the right way. It will not be able to achieve its either short term, mid term, or the long term. 2049 ambition is too ambitious for it to achieve. India may actually leave China behind if we progress in this manner, if our leadership and stability in political leadership continues.
Okay, so I think so that's a very positive note with which you are ending, that India does have a chance provided it continues on the path which it is following, and focus remains on the dime, that is diplomacy, then information, military, and economics. You cannot have a single minded focus. Otherwise, what happened to USSR, we all know. It was single mindedly focused on military and it collapsed. So, therefore, it has to be a 360-degree approach to the future. And India has to follow that if it wants to emerge as leader. But uh, now we will end the discussion of ours with you by myself showing few of snapshots. As I say, what the world is seeing China as. Now, if you see those snapshots, we'll not discuss them. We'll go one by one on each of these snapshots. I'll say a few lines, a few words on that, and then the public can take a cue as to what is happening in China on two factors: internal stability in the government apparatus, and the second major issue is external mistrust against China or distrust against China. Why? It had already had a full-fledged agreement with Russia on border issue, and in this new map controversy, it has even annoyed the Russians are keeping quiet as of now because they don't have the option of telling anything very strong, but they have just said that our border issues have been finalized based on some agreement. But they've said indirectly, they have also conveyed to them that, look, partner, this is not correct. Those islands had already been decided how we had to Usuruski Island, how it was to be split. It was already decided. It will be center of the island. With one side is yours, the other side is
Yes,
there.
yes, yes.
So this basic problem with China of not honoring agreements. Same thing they have done with Tajikistan as far as the border agreement is concerned. They cross at will in the name of saying that ETIM militants are going across. So they just cross over to Tajikistan, and even look at what they do in Bhutan, in the Yatung Valley. They just
That,
cross over to Bhutan. They just cross
absolutely.
over to Bhutan. Sometimes even physically manhandle the soldiers there, and they come back like Dada. So this mistrust of China is going to be a major factor in its impediment towards becoming a global leader. And with that, let me just show you a few of these uh, cuttings which I have taken out. Look at this. This is the story of the defense minister, and this is coming from a very authentic Chinese source. And later on, it has been carried by all the papers across the world. I mean, not only by India, not only by the Western world, but also within China. These things have come up. When asked as to where has he gone, he says all matters. The spokesperson has said all matters will be investigated, indirectly saying that he's under investigation. Right? You look at this statement. ली सांगफू, उसका जो प्रोड्यूसर था
Oh,
of the
yes, sir.
rocket,
He's missing for several. Yeah, yeah, you're right, sir.
he's also under a cloud. Look at this. CCP wants to intervene in Taiwan. They already had a plan.
Yes, sir.
So if you have such things openly said that if need be, in fact, there is a video in which they are moving the mechanized forces closer to Taiwan coast. Are they having some military plans? Are they waiting for the Russia Ukraine war to get over? Only time will tell. China is ticking baby time bomb. Corruption, debt will lead to economic collapse. Of course, New York Post, we should take it with a pinch of salt, but read the South China Morning Post, similar kind of things. Okay, the only papers which are touting Chinese praise are the People's Daily and Global Times. Okay, they are a propaganda mouthpiece. China's economic data breakdown shows signs of life amid prevailing doom and gloom outlook. What has happened in the month of August, for the benefit of our viewers, that China has started showing slow progress of an upward surge in the economy. And this they are trying to do it by giving out sops to the real estate. Okay, and also they have inferred this from their subway traffic, subway data traffic, how many people are moving every day. So therefore, also the luxury section of theirs has again revived. That is the luxury section of their society. They have started buying vehicles, they have started buying old vehicles, so there has been a little bit of improvement in their economy. But they are the ultimate conclusion is of South China Morning Post is they are still not out of the doom and gloom. Remember the aging population, it is irreversible. They have to do something very drastic. They have taken their laborers to other countries, and those guys have got settled there only, unless they tell them to come back to come back to India. Sorry, come back to China. So what I'm saying is that Chinese are in a real internal shit and also external. China think tank says India is sabotaging G20 for its own agenda. And this is a Chinese think tank, a government sponsored think tank. I am forgetting the name. Yeah, it is uh, Contemporary International Relations, China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. This is a think tank of the Chinese government, which is coming out with this kind of a statement. See, on the ground, they have said, it's positive signals have come out of G20, etc., etc., blah blah. But if India's China study group comes out with a statement like this, that's the true message of that country. And this is also something similar to the Indian China study group, which has come out with this statement. What does this indicate? They are not able to take the kind of approach which the Indians are adopting, as far as international diplomacy is concerned, as far as international affairs are concerned, whether it is geopolitics or economics. Remember, India started this whole theme of G20 with what? One world, one family, one
One,
future.
yeah.
And it has always kept climate change as its number one agenda. Why? Because that is the global common which will finish this world. Especially if you look at the island countries, they are in the most danger of getting knocked out. Okay, look at their worldview. Now this is something very interesting. We were talking of the maps, no? Now left hand side is the Chinese worldview. Where have they put China? Right in the center of the world. This is the map officially published by China every time. Next time onward, India will publish a map of globe with India at the center, right? Look at the right map. That is the map normally which is available to every rest of the world, where Greenwich Mean Time is the center. Of course, they have also done it with a purpose. That the European continent is the place from where every power emanates. Both sides have done it, but what I'm trying to say is that attitude which Chinese are having. Look at this evolution of the China. The other day in our channel, joint channel, where we were talking about the maps. Look at the way the maps have evolved. The red, how the red dots have evolved over a period of time. So पहले if you look at it, पहले तो रेड बहुत छोटा था, फिर धीरे धीरे बढ़ता गया.
Yes,
And
yes.
finally, what it is, what the maps which it has published, I don't want to go because that discussion is already taken, where they have included everything around them as part of their territory. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that these are other issues which I don't want to show. We will move on to the question answer sessions. If you have any comments which you would like to say on what I have said, two factors I have said. Internal problems of China are somewhere pulling Xi Jinping down. He's losing confidence in the state apparatus and the CCP and the PLA. Will he succumb and be replaced by an internal rebellion in the CCP? Is something which is we have to wait and watch and see. This might happen. And the second thing which I said was that international distrust or mistrust, whatever, against China, not honoring agreements, not following on the statements which they make. They tell something and do something. If they are so honest, why did they not apply the same conditions to the BRI? You remember the statement which we made that any
Yes.
connectivity agreement must be ABCD,
Transparent. Yes, yes.
transparent. This is what the words of Modi. When they talk of debt, BRI, it is all the way totally different. Higher commercial interest, etc. So your final comment, then we'll go for the question answer session because we have to end, right?
So, you want me to give the comments, sir?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean,
Uh,
you
uh,
demolish me. You
uh,
demolish me. The idea is the audience must listen to both sides, right?
okay. Sir, I totally agree with you, sir, as far as the observations which have been flagged and covered by you. There is no denying the fact that there is much more than what actually meets our eyes, and we get to hear about China. There is a need for international media also to have access to find out as to what is happening in China, because what happens in China willy nilly will impact the world order. Because even now, while we keep talking about decoupling or from decoupling to de-risking and diversification, it is going to take quite a long time to actually uh, get away from China. Though our dependence has become so much, it will be very, very difficult. One. Number two, I wish to highlight in this is that somewhere there is a silver lining in what is happening. Whatever happens will always, this is a Hindu philosophy. Whatever happens will always happen for the best. Perhaps it is happening for the good of China. Maybe the leadership will realize that they are going through a raw patch or a rough path. They need to make amends. And pray to God that they make amends. Otherwise, they are heading for a doomsday, sir. It is not going to be. I suspect that the defense minister who's been absconding or who's been hijacked for past whatever days, 20 odd days now, or more than 20 days, perhaps he's involved in a kind of a allegation which was tantamounting to a kind of a military coup. Perhaps I may be wrong. This is my guess, wild guess. Otherwise, a personality of his stature and upbringing, the kind of qualification he has got, the standing, and the goodwill that he enjoyed, that of the Chinese premier, Xi Jinping, suddenly, how can things go out of the blue? He has been picked up from Rocket Force. He's the one who was
Heading the equipment
responsible for the
division.
procurement. One of the
Equipment
best
division.
guys, having spent such a long time in the armed forces, doing so good, having been handpicked, wouldn't have been brought up like this and given out of turn promotion and brought to the seven-member council, state council members. And out of seven, he is in the best five. So how can he go missing like this? Same is the case with foreign minister, one of the best guys. Look at his profile, sir. Leave aside all the kinds of allegations and kind of people have been actually connecting him to lots of
Corruption.
illicit and illegal issues. So
No,
my
corruption and
take on.
illicit relations.
Yes, and these are not the two people. There are 40 or 45 of them, one after another. Some of them have come to light, some of them have not come to light. I think there is much more things which are happening. There are serious issues which have not caught our attention. That serious issue is there a internal turmoil to replace or remove Xi Jinping from his leadership role? Is there somebody else in China coming up who's there to challenge and occupy that high place? Otherwise, the senior members of CCP or the veterans, there has not been an occasion like this wherein the senior veterans have come and rebuked and actually reprimanded the leadership of China. And
Yeah.
I don't think in my lifetime I have read about this. This perhaps is the first time it is happening like this. That means there is a serious trouble. More than the economy, there is a leadership problem. There is a problem of acceptance, whether it is external or internal. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've had a very nice discussion. Let's move on to the questions of the audience. The Jan Chaturvedi has given a lot of comments, so we will flash them one by one just for the benefit of the audience. Because after the YouTube session is over, and I would also like to request the audience to please like, subscribe to our channel. It doesn't take much of an effort. You have to just press the subscribe button. No money is involved, and you have to just press the like button, and that's all. No money, no nothing. We are absolutely a transparent organization. If you wish to contribute to us, we have our QR code also. We'll flash it up towards the end, but that's up to you all. The I will just go one by one on his comments. We will not discuss much of them because mostly they are all self-explanatory. For example, spice route amounts to reclaiming history. In longer run, probably it would be preferred route for littoral states of Arabian Sea and GCC states. I think this is something which ultimately, in the long run, will overshadow the BRI which the Chinese were trying to do.
Yes.
Finally, he says it will be a geopolitical win for India by supporting Greece and Cyprus at the cost of Turkey. See, Turkey is somewhere being sidelined because there was a corridor which was being planned between up to Turkey separately, right? The,
It was starting from Iraq. So I think this
Iraq.
proposal is under implementation, sir. Yes.
It is under implementation, but it is likely to bypass that because of the next point which he is trying to bring out is that okay, we'll cover that later. There are some other questions of the other audience. I mean, I must take their questions. Ask how Pakistan and Sino combined together affect us like recent Anantnag attack. Now he's trying to actually connect the two to say that are they conspiring to do a proxy war uh, on the behest of China? Your
I,
views on this?
I am a strong believer of things. Never look at any incident in isolation, sir. In the not only in our South Asia or the subcontinent, anywhere in the world, whether it is Manipur issue or it is Anantnag issue, China has very cunningly managed to activate our eastern border, that is the Manipur, as also which was lying dormant relatively, and
Yeah,
been able to reactivate our western border. Within the western border, the trans IB, trans international border drone warfare is on. There are counterfeit currencies, there are contrabands coming across, they are being assembled at a particular place. The ceasefire violation, I don't know whether it has taken place or not. As per the latest infiltration attempt, I take it that they have been quietly coming in, sir. through different gaps. We need to plug the gaps. And as regards this particular question, if you look at China's aim, the objective, to rejuvenate Middle Kingdom. That's why you see the map at the center of the world. Middle Kingdom by 2049. If this is the aim, if rest all things, despite the slippages, has fallen in place, the modernization is uh, in place. I would say 2015 to 2020, it was supposed to be completed. It's delayed by 2 years, 2022. Still, you have a couple of issues coming up. I still feel China is still aiming at to be a global power by 2049, and in order to become a global power, it has to assert its regional hegemony, establish itself as a power in the region itself. In order to achieve that, it is encircling India. It has encircled all our eight sisters, northeastern sisters, and it is taking advantage of Pakistan. It will apply that 36 stratagem game and carry out or revive terrorism in the Western border as it has started with Anandnath. I am very convinced China's hand is very much there.
Okay, so we'll again carry on with Janil Chaturvedi. This is we have discussed this, so we will not dwell much. China is rattled because AU becoming a member of G20 with the support of India, and this development will reduce the influence of China in Africa and give a hope to Latin America and ASEAN. So, some this you have already spoken much about it. There are views and the counter views. You came up with some counter views. This
This is
is
a very good observation, sir. This is a very good observation by General Chaturvedi, sir. Yes,
yeah.
Latin America and other South Asian or the global South countries
it,
will
it,
be
it gives
aspired.
them it gives them that thing that who's more reliable, who's more trustworthy, who's more benign, who's
Absolutely, sir.
who's more non-threatening is the word which I keep using. Who's more non-threatening, India or China? uh,
Yes.
Power, we may not have that same power what China has, but we do have other qualities. Jagpreet Batra says after dropping many catches like the UN seat, 1971 win, etc., we are starting to latch on to it. So it's a positive comment on the India story. Thank you, Jagpreet, for your observation. Yes, I think we are moving in the right direction. Still too early to say that we have arrived, but yes, we are making progress towards becoming a significant power in the world. Let me put the correct wording for this. Let's go to the next one. China appears to have lost hope to regain its heft in G21. No wonder they want to prop up BRICS and SCO. Yeah, you can comment on this if you want, because you had some observation about BRIC and SCO.
Yes, sir. All I would say is that the latest BRICS meeting, which took place in Johannesburg, over there also, it was quite evident that China is not able to demonstrate its capability, diplomatic capability. It's not able to demonstrate any other capability except for the economic might with the help of which it has managed to penetrate and become a kind of a way of life. But the problem with China's economic might is wherever it is loaning out money, it has got that hidden agenda to leverage, the political mileage or oil or gas deal or the mineral deal. So it has got a hidden agenda behind every loan that it's giving out. So when you compare this vis-a-vis the philosophy of India, which we have tried to sell out to the environment or to the global order, perhaps I think without any ambiguity, the proposal proposed during G20 in the declaration, Delhi Declaration, has got enduring stamina. It has got an enduring objective. It will be more preferred by the global South countries than any other countries.
Okay, there's another question which is from Chandrasekhar Murthy. We in India, Nehru to Modi, have tried to have good relations with China. Why does China always sabotage that? India and China could be naturally geopolitically aligned. Your views?
I must confess that this question has got a hidden, it is loaded with political implications. Anything I say, I would be blunt enough to say that that theory of appeasement, which was applied by we as a nation, was at the cost of national interest in the initial years after the independence. By no means should we going for good relations at the cost of national interest. I think we lost out on the national interest for good length of time. I won't like to mention about the leadership. These are my personal views. I may be wrong. Second thing is that Modi is doing things which are actually in the larger good and the national interest of India. They have been glossed over, they have been overlooked. Otherwise, the leadership at that point in time, post independent, wouldn't have said, "What is there in Aksai Chin? Not a blade of grass grows there." Such kind of statements by the leadership are highly detrimental. They are very, very demotivating for the soldiers on the ground. They are demotivating, de inspiring for the citizens of the country. They actually prune down the size of the map. On paper, we have drawn the sketches on the Kulnun mountain at the boundary, but on ground, you have pulled our troops back. I'll just cite three examples: Gartok, Yute Sigatse, and Yartung. These three
Hmm.
bases, they were during the post the British India Empire. These are the three places where we had the military camps during the British time. They
Even
continued
last
to
time.
occupy these three places
Yeah.
till 1954, sir. In 1954, the Panchshil Agreement was signed. And with signing of the Panchshil Agreement, the non-interference, and you know those host of 5 7 points, we had to pull back these people to the border. That was the start point of the Chinese border having come along and aligned with the border with the Tibet, India and Tibet. So, what was India doing from 1947 to 1954? Why couldn't we wake up? That road which has been built 179 kilometers northeast of Aksai Chain, even though the intelligence report had come in the early part of 50s, why was it debated sometime in 1959, sir? Why did the nation take so much of time? So, all this put together, I would actually submit one point. We are all military leaders, that whenever the country has got ineffective opposition in the political leadership, the country has been driven to go in for a conflict with some of the stakeholders.
I think that's a very uh, major observation which you have made. We will leave it at that, without going into further political issues. There's another question which is given by Sheshagiri Vemuri. North Korea, Pakistan, and Iran are unpredictable rogue states doing China's bidding. India and the world will have repeated pinpricks from them. Your views? I think absolutely true. There will be always that competition between China and the rest of the world. Your views on this?
So, there is never an ideal situation in any geopolitical environment.
Yeah.
But we need to be alive to what is happening. We cannot be in a blind well, closing our eyes and ears, and unmindful of what is happening. The hallmark of a rising, progressive, forward-looking nation lies in being remaining aware of all these things happening. It is the reality, it cannot be contested. These pinpricks will continue. But at the same time, we should not we should continue to engage with these countries in whatever manner, except for our immediate neighbor, that is the Pakistan.
Yeah.
Pakistan has to be dealt with in a manner that it improves for its own good. At the moment, it is doing everything for its disaster.
So we will take this as the last question, Sudhakar, because I will not like to hold you more. There are a number of questions, but I thought this would interest the people. And there is one more question I'll ask you. It is not directly related to today's discussion, but it has some overtones of China. So you may answer that also. What is the future of Iran and China? because
the
of all
ex-
these because of all these G20, BRICS, SEO, all this happening, how do you think China is now going to manipulate, articulate its relation with Iran, given that Saudi Arabia is getting closer and closer to India, and some kind of a rebonding has been done with the US also of Saudi Arabia.
Fine. So, excellent question. My take on the question is that 1400 years there has been an ongoing conflict between Shia and Sunni, sir.
Hmm.
To bring these two factions together has been a yeomark, I would say, a significant milestone in the 21st century. There
Okay.
is a yearning and desire, there is a craving for peace, there is a craving for progress, there is a craving for improvement in quality of life, development, not only in West Asia, but the world over. While on one hand, we may be having Ukraine Russia war, which is ongoing 19 months, and beyond that, it will carry on for another 2 years, maybe. At the same time, because of the Ukraine conflict, because of the pandemic, because of the economic recession, because of the price rise of the fuel, fertilizer, and the food, the common man's living and the livelihood is getting adversely affected. So, therefore, there is a inner desire. It is growing from bottom up, sir, that enough is enough. The whole world has to look towards the peace. But that is one part of the answer. The second part is China being what it is, after having been isolated and having been notified in the strategic document of US in November 22 or so, it came out that it is the number one enemy of USA. The USA being the superpower, it still continues to assert its authority as a superpower. China will try, more it gets isolated, more it will expand people like countries like Iran. Iran is turning out to be a manufacturing hub in West Asia, despite all its misgivings and all the challenges it is going through. Iran is providing weapons, ammunition, drones, etc., to China. China will, in my understanding, it is going to use Iran as also, let's not ignore the fact that China has already made a commitment in black and white to invest $450 billion in Iran alone. Out of 450, the last I read was 4 months back, close to 35 billion have been committed. And it's going far and wide, penetrating into the society of Iran and also in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia incidentally has developed a kind of refinery in China. So there is ongoing trade activities between China and Saudi Arabia. Let's not be euphoric about what is happened between India and Saudi Arabia. We must remain very careful when we are discussing about. You cannot trust anyone. You actually have to respect all, suspect all, and inspect all, like we say in army.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have to respect all, suspect all. That's the bottom line if you are a military man, and absolutely true. There is one question which I will take of Brigadier Bhatia. China is economic giant, but unfortunately, it has weaponized the economy to put countries in debt trap. Is India in a position to wrest the influence in immediate future? I think we have discussed this question in great
If you
length.
allow me, I would like to say, because many Indians ask similar type of questions, let's not forget about the fact that India, as on today, is a $3.75 trillion economy. China, you keep finding the varying figures from 17 trillion to 19.77 trillion. Pick up whichever figure you want. It is 5.5 times deeper and larger than that of Indian economy. So, under the circumstances in 2023, it is a very far-fetched ambition to have, but yes, it is definitely desirable. We would like to go and attain that status, but our modus operandi would not be as that of China. Our modus operandi would be people friendly, participative, transparent, accountable, beneficial to the society. It should be devved on a development matrix rather than disaster matrix like the China is practicing. There is a hidden agenda behind every kind of project they are actually undertaking anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So, uh, one more question. It's not a question, but it is some kind of an observation. How much we are going to we are going to be affected of this illegal migration from Bangladesh and Myanmar border. Basically, what he was trying to, I mean, why I have taken this question. Normally, in normal course, I wouldn't have taken up this question. Basically, what he's asking is, will China interfere and use this particular activity to its advantage? Should have been the right question. And because this came up during the Manipur discussion a lot, especially from the Myanmar side. So your views, quick, one line, two line, that's all. Because you're getting late now. It's your time now.
Illegal migration from Bangladesh and Myanmar. Myanmar today is not what it was prior to January 2021. It is a military junta. The other name is Tamdo. And military junta is being driven by the funds and also philosophy of China. One. The Rohingyas who have been displaced from their region has been purely because the pipeline and other connectivity projects are being undertaken by China. They have been displaced by none other than the Burmese Buddhists, and you find this pipeline coming up to Cocos Island is passing through that Rakhine province, Rakhine province, and
Rakhin,
the
Rakhin.
Rakhine province, and the Rohingyas have been displaced. They are camping in Bangladesh, they are camping in Sohna and Delhi, they are camping in Jammu, they are camping elsewhere in the country. So, is there any good point which you can counter argue to say that China cannot or will not exploit this very tool to be leveraged with? Even if it doesn't, I would still suspect, I would advise the leadership in the political hierarchy that be mindful of these people. They can be taken advantage of. So it is one part. Second part is the Bangladesh illegal migration. Bangladesh illegal migration, I only hope the question is not asked by one of the editors whom I refused to answer because he was not believing that there are no illegal migration taking place. He maintained कि sir
No,
LDC में
no,
कुछ पढ़ा नहीं जाता.
no, no, no,
So anyway,
GK is a regular visitor of our show, and
okay, sir. So there is a
so
chief editor who got annoyed with me and he did not believe when I said that there are illegal migration taking place from Bangladesh.
yeah.
They can be very well made use
In any
of.
case, in any case, Sudhakar, we are very very objective in our assessment and analysis. हम लोग कोई इधर उधर की बात नहीं करते हैं, किसी की साइड नहीं लेते हैं. जो 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 सच है, जो सही है, जो facts हैं, we tell that and leave the leave the assessment to the public what they want to make of it. We
Perfect.
do give our opinion. We do give our opinion by virtue of having some of our own internal experiences and also experiences of our life, but that's about all. We don't go beyond that, right? If I continue, we will not end because today we are having a lot of questions. uh, so therefore, guys who are on the chat, please excuse or pardon us because Jan Sudhakar has to go for an engagement immediately after this. I have already held him more than 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Jan Sudhakar. It was a wonderful discussion, and thank you, audience, for having uh, asked so many insightful questions. I am sure we'll be fortunate enough to have you all again. We're going to have a very interesting discussion on Tuesday with Cleo Pascal. Last time she could not come, so this time she has promised. She's now in Canada, and we will be discussing the Indo-Canadian relationship, which has a huge problem, and it was clearly visible in the G20 summit also. Thank you very much. We will close this show by our end of the show. We